We're good? All right, I'd like to call to order the Columbia Beach Town Council regular meeting Wednesday, July 21st, 2021 at 6 p.m. I ask that we stand for a moment of silence and then we'll follow with the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next up is roll call of members. All members are present. Are there any additions to the agenda? No? We will be going into closed session and the closed meeting portion, but that's not an addition to the agenda. All right, approval of the agenda. Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Do you have a second? Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The minutes are not in the packet, so I'm not going to get a motion. We're going to save that for the next work session. All right, council member announcements. We'll start on this side. Dr. Self-Silver?
So only one thing from the Parks and Rec Department. There will be a skateboard clinic on July 31st from 12 to 5 at the Columbia Beach High School. It's free entry, sponsored by the Columbia Beach Parks and Rec Department, and that's a joint venture with Neck Adventures and the DC Wheels. So anybody that wants to participate in that, please join in. Nothing.
Mr. Duggan?
Nothing tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Ronquillo?
Well, just one interesting factoid. Those of you that read the Freelance Star on Sunday may have seen an article that Senator Bryce Reeves is putting in an amendment for a budget amendment for $43 million for the purpose of recruiting and retention of Virginia State Police. What I found interesting is that the superintendent of state police reported that they have over 1/4 of their sworn officer positions unfilled at this point. So I think that illustrates the type of market that we're in terms of obtaining and recruiting police officers.
I attended last week's school board, but I'll let Dr. Turner tell us all about that.
Okay. And I attended the triathlon. That went really well and very well attended, 300 participants and a couple Colonial Beach locals in it, which was pretty exciting to see. And I also just wanted to let everybody know that the downtown Colonial Beach and the town are co-sponsoring a grant, working together to adopt a tree along Colonial Avenue. So if you would like to help us encourage businesses and properties along Colonial Avenue to adopt a tree or bush, the tree, the mulch, the planting, and a water donut are included, all free. They just have to sign up and pick a tree, and the Virginia Department of Forestry has picked species that are suitable and also provide color year-round. So we have some fall color trees, we have some spring color trees, some summer, and some winter. So that hopefully if there's some diversity along there, we will have color along Colonial Avenue year-round. So it's an exciting program, and I just want to let everybody know about that. So you'll see more about this, and we'll continue to advertise it. Hopefully we'll have strong participation. Yeah.
That requires permission of both the property owner and the business owner. Is that true, or does that depend on their lease, or?
That
Do
would
you
be
have
a
any idea?
question for Joyce.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody who's interested in the program, I'm sure we can work out the details of that. Yeah. Next up, I'll do town manager update.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council, members of the public, Town Manager, Indy Adams Jacobs. I'm a little bit under the weather, so bear with me as I go through this presentation today. Starting with our intergovernmental relations and community affairs slide, just a reminder for the Potomac Bridge update to slow down as you go through those zones if you're voting throughout that area for safety of those folks who are working on the bridge. We are in the second phase of that new construction of that bridge. If I showed a presentation last month on the many phases, I think there are 5 phases, and we are in the second phase of that project, which is set to be completed of 2022. Moving on, Colonial Beach receives the state historic designation. We mentioned last month about the great historic designation that we received from the state. We are now proceeding with the federal designation and expect to have an update on that in the fall. Moving on to town departmental updates. Next slide. Update from our finance department. We have received our $1.8 million that we were slated to receive that we presented on last month. This money is related to our American Rescue Plan Act funding. Last year, we received the funding from what was known as the coronavirus funding, and that passed through the county. This year, we were a direct recipient as a non-entitlement unit. So we received our first fund. Next year, we can anticipate to receive up to 1.8 million, but between 1.4 and 1.8 million. Another update from our finance department is that our pre-audit team or our audit team completed their preliminary on-site work last month since our last update on June 24th and 25th. They will return in the fall to conduct their core audit work on behalf of the town and our schools, and we are slated to have our audit presented by the end of November. The deadline for the state has been moved from November 30th to December 15th. Due to the coronavirus, this was a change that they made at the state level, but they anticipate to do that every year moving forward. So December 15th will be the new deadline. An update on economic development as it relates to the Dotson project. I would encourage you all to follow our Facebook page. Both the mayor and the developer, Mr. Duke Dotson, gave an update on all 4 phases of the Dotson project, but just an update from the town. This project, first phase of the project was closed back in May. The developer anticipates groundbreaking and site work to begin in August. Signs were erected last week near our town hall building. So if you want to go by and take a look at those 23 units proposed on that site, that is there at the corner of that parcel. Next, moving on to Parks and Recreation, Castlewood Park improvements. We've almost completed the bathroom remodel. We are just working on flooring and completing the electrical, which is slated to be completed this week. The next phases of that project, excuse me, will begin in August, and then the construction phase for the park and other related items at Castlewood will start in October and be completed by mid-November. All park signage as it relates to Eleanor Park and every other park has been ordered by our Parks and Rec Department in collaboration with our Public Works Department. So I'd like to thank them for getting that completed. Next, moving on to planning, I'm very happy to report that Ms. Kathleen Easley and her team and the Planning Commission has received the first draft of the comp plan. The plan will move through the Planning Commission process to Town Council and public hearings for review and input. This is slated to be completed for adoption by late August, hopefully by late August, if not early September. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Chief to give an update from police.
Good evening, council. Yeah, right here, okay. Good evening, council. Recently, the town received over $12,000 in asset forfeiture funds that was resulted from 2 investigations that our officers investigated last year, one on June 8th, 2020, the other one June 16th. Both of those incidents were drug-related investigations in which numerous drugs were seized. The incident on June 8th, over $7,000 in U.S. currency was seized. The defendants in that case were subsequently convicted. The June 16th also had a lot of drugs that were seized, over $4,000 cash. And in that case also, the subjects were subsequently convicted. And just wanted to advise you of that.
Thank you, Chief, and I thank you for being modest, but we're really proud of the work that your officers have done in getting those drugs and guns off our street and then getting approximately $12,000 back to your department for future equipment use. So thank you. Yes, moving on with the police department, we're happy to present National Night Out will be held for the first time in 2 years on August 3rd from 6 to 8 p.m. working with Ms. Bernetta Wright in our police department. So we're looking forward to holding that event and seeing the youth to come back out and welcome them back out into our community for a great night of events. Update from Public Works. Again, they've been working diligently on the Castlewood Park improvements. We've also been working to replace the Cooper Library windows, which is slated to be completed by next week on August 5th. And then again, the park signage has been ordered and will be in place within the coming weeks. Another great report, we've worked internally to submit pre-submittal applications to the Virginia Department of Transportation. We submitted 5 projects on behalf of the town, one being the Potomac Pier Terminal, which is a transportation alternative application project, which you'll see the rendering up there right on your right. Also a Trail to Monroe Point Birthplace, the White Avenue Project, 8th Street extension of Classic Shores build out, and then 10th and 11th Street Classic Shores build out, and working with Mr. Rob Murphy, the mayor, and Councilmember Allison, as well as a public works liaison and VDOT to get these applications submitted. We'll be working with getting the final submittals in by October. Finally, I wanted to give a huge shout out to both Heather and Laura once again for our town internship program. Our 4 interns who presented last week or last month have been doing great work on behalf of the town, from everything from working with our finance department as an administrative intern, and Heather, as well as my department, the town manager's office, doing great work as it relates to sustainability and resiliency, really learning all things government at this point. We've really been great to have them around and helping us transition, as well as getting some of the preliminary work done on our website as we move forward to revamping our website in the coming months. Their internship will be concluding within the next 2 weeks, so we wanted to definitely give them their kudos while they're here. And And that concludes my report, and I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Anybody have any questions? No. Okay. Mr. Trivett? And Deshaun, I'm gonna call on you after Mr. Trivett, you can give us an update on the school board, okay? Okay.
Madam Mayor, town council members, I also got an opportunity to attend the triathlon with the mayor on Sunday. It was actually almost 600 participants, 300 on Saturday and 300 on Sunday. And Greg Hawkins, the CEO and director of that event, did such an awesome job. It was really great. And the YMCA is a recipient of some of those funds, which is a great thing for helping children. So I want to tell you that at our Board of Supervisors meeting, the treasurer is responsible for providing an update to the Board of Supervisors. She reported that 18.29 million in real estate taxes has been collected and 7.6 million in personal property taxes have been collected. So that's 98%. In real estate, 94%. It's set a record. It's the most they've ever been able to collect. So obviously that was a good thing when we deal with 2020. I want to tell you that we've had 323 EMS calls in the month of June alone. That's about 10 a day. On more than one occasion, all 4 squads in the county was in the town of Colonial Beach. So if that tells you anything. But I think they're starting to listen. And I think we're getting to the point down there in the county that how imperative it is that we get a squad. I have to shout out to the Colonial Beach Rescue Squad. They've stepped up and been doing duty nights, which has been a good thing to relieve some of that pressure. So I'm not seeing as many or hearing as many on the radio asking for mutual assistance from Dalvin or King George that we were. But something needs to be done. No doubt about it. We need to stay at the forefront of this because the fire departments are starting to go through the same type of thing. When you hear a fire call now down the county, if one person gets out on an engine, which is unheard of, it usually takes 4 people. But you normally hear that one is marking up, taking an engine to a fire. He can't pump the engine. He can't go in the house, can't do it all. So it's really getting critical. And I think the county's starting to try to realize what that's going to cost if they've got to convert to all paid fire department as well. It's already costing a lot of money for just the EMS. So I want to make you aware of that. I will tell you, I did think of Mr. Kern when I was at that meeting because the chairman of the board gave a history lesson to the town manager. And Mr. Monicure and Dr. Sullivan, and I think they probably, and they may have already had a little bit of knowledge of the upper end and the lower end of Westmoreland County. But he actually talked about that for 5 minutes or more to talk about the history of that. So I thought that was good, but I'll tell you on a light note, what that tells me is, and I'm seeing it more every day, we're building that bridge. And thank you, Madam Mayor, and all of you that have reached out to the county administrator. He's very impressed with our town manager. She's in collaboration with him regularly, and it might even be daily, plus meeting with him quite often. And they schedule that, and I've heard so many positive things about that from him, which is extremely encouraging, I have to tell you. It's just a totally different turnaround, if that's the nice way to say it. But we know there are some issues that's being worked on, whether it's water and sewer or some of the things that where we still have some differences that you're working with the county on to try to resolve those issues. But I really do see a positive change, and I just wanted to make you aware of that. I think that you probably, those of you that's been down there, maybe seen that already, because we need to get recognition. We're the jewel of this county, this 5th district. And that hasn't been recognized for many, many years. And we all know that. This public knows that. The people live in this town knows. I mean, we all know that. But I'm just thankful that I'm seeing some light that I think will make us all feel good in the future. Anything else that anybody has for me? It was a shorter meeting from the last month's, was hours, and it was horrible. But it went on and on and on. As you know, those of you that attended, and I'm thankful that you do come down there and you find out what's going on, and it's very much appreciated. But is there any questions or anything about anything that's going on? I'm sure I'm forgetting something. that I wanted to pass on, but I kind of got caught off guard because I was thinking that the town manager was going to go through the whole list, everything I was going to cover. So, but we work good together. I'm just thankful that she's here, and I think that it's going to be very professional, and a lot of things are going to get done. So, any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I noticed that Dr. Fisher didn't mention the Colonial Beach school system. And I understand we've been in existence for quite a long time when he was talking about up county and down county kids. We were in existence during that time.
We were, and actually, the school was in Colonial Beach, then it was moved to Oak Grove, and it came back. But I wasn't gonna, I was being kind, but he really, yeah, I know exactly where you're coming from, because I know that history as well. So you're absolutely right. He kind of missed something there about when the high school kids was going down there and how we all came together. But I think his intentions were very well received, even though a little bit may have gotten left out about, some of the Colonial Beach history.
I'm sorry I missed it. Although I will say that I am so glad that other council members, Thomas has Justin, he's been, how we're gonna get you down there at some point. But, Mike's been, and we'll get Kenny down there at some point. But that itself has also developed a relationship for them to see us and for us to be present there. And I encourage our audience members today, if you're here and you're a citizen of Colonial Beach, you are a citizen of Westmoreland County. And the Board of Supervisors also represents you. And what they're doing in the county also affects you. So it's nice to see some Colonial Beach participation in the audience there and just
Yes,
have
it
us.
is.
And I think that's helped too.
Madam Mayor, if I could add one more thing that I forgot, because I actually have gotten some calls on this, and maybe you have as well, and that's the building on Lincoln Street. The old school from way back is being renovated, and I know Dr. Turner's here tonight, and he may be going to speak about it. But since I have been contacted, I normally don't say anything on Facebook. It's not very smart to do that in most occasions. But on this particular time when that was brought out, unfortunately, the people that know the answers weren't asked them. And I was on that school board when we talked about renovating that building because it was falling down. For those that may not know, Dotson bought the school board building. The school board's got to go somewhere, but we planned way ahead of time when I was still on that board. And Mr. Turner first came to renovate that building and try to change those windows to make them look just like they were. But that wasn't the first African-American school in this town. My understanding is it was a building on Jackson Street that was the first. But obviously that building has been, my kids went to first grade in there. And I was actually talking to the current chairman of the school board who actually went to first grade there as well. So that building was a school for quite a while. Then it was converted to a weight room for the football team for many years. And the last few years before I left the board, it was a storage room and you could not walk in the building. And it was just steadily falling down. It's going to be a beautiful school board office. It's going to bring life to it. If you get a chance, go over there, understand maybe Mr. Turner will share it tonight where something was written on the wall over there in 1941. I think it was 3 days before Pearl Harbor, if I have the year correct, that somebody wrote something like a love letter or something on the inside of one of those walls. So there is some history over there. We know that, but I'd like to see people when they go to that building that hopefully the school system will tell the history. We tried to get pictures a while back and was unable to get them because nobody seemed to have any of what it used to be like. But I just wanted to say that building's been renovated more than one time. That siding hasn't been on there for years and years. So, yes, ma'am.
I was on a meeting about that building where a bunch of people got together, a historic, and I believe it was the second Black school in the town. It wasn't the first, but it was used as a Black school when schools were still segregated. And my understanding was it was the second Black school in town. Do you know, can you confirm or?
Well, maybe Mr. Turner, when he comes up, will be able to tell you if he has any of that history. But I do know that I did talk to another person that went to school there. I want to say it was in '66 and was sharing that at that time, there was a bathroom for the colored people and a bathroom for the white people. And I mean, that's history. but that supposedly back in that day, that's what that was. I didn't go to school in that building. So I don't really know a whole lot about the history, even though we did try to get the history of that building. I know Patrice Lyburn tried to talk to people that she knew to see if anybody had pictures or was still living that had anything at all where we could draw that history back out and really present it and let people know and just bring that building back to life again and be able to tell the stories we do with any building.
I would say I was part of that workshop and have been working with Dr. Turner. And when they exposed the interior of the building, once they took the drywall out, the plaster down, which needed to be done, then you could really see what it was, because there weren't a lot of pictures of it, and you could see the old framing and where it had been renovated and what was new framing and what didn't fit. And we went through it, and we got the original window sizes out of there. We got the transom sizes. We got, we knew the pitch of the metal roof. And for the most part, the front is going to look like it did, I don't know, I guess it's probably almost 100 years ago. 80 years ago, maybe. So that's really exciting. And I think I agree with you. I think that there was some, somebody wasn't talking to the right people, and we have been collaborating and are definitely looking forward to celebrating the historic nature of that building while also updating it and allowing it to have life again. So it's an exciting project.
I agree. Any questions from anybody else? Thank you. Good seeing you.
Mr. Turner, good segue, huh?
I guess.
I guess.
You better know more than I did.
I don't know if I do. How you guys doing tonight? So, one quick point to what Mr. Tribbitt was talking about. There was a letter, I can't make it out, but it seems as if it was a love letter that was placed on the side of the wall of the building, exterior part. And I think I figured out the names, but I don't want to say it out loud right now because I just don't know. But it's very cute. So I plan on sharing the email with the picture of the letter with you all. And as Mr. Tribbitt alluded to, I would like to, within the renovation, try to figure out a way to make it a focal point, maybe a centerpiece, maybe something that can be cut out and saved. I'm not really sure. But it's just a really nice letter. It's something that just we were able to find. And the Jet Construction in their demolition of the exterior found it and shared it with Mr. Tribbitt, and he gave me a call and told me about it. So it's really nice. It's a really nice letter. Back to your Dr. Sullivan's comment about the second African American school. I'm not really sure, but I believe that was the comment that was made in our meetings together. I don't have my notes in front of me though, so I don't want to say that's fact, but I do agree with Mr. Tribbitt that we all came to the consensus that was not the first African American school within the town of Colonial Beach, that it was off of Jackson Street. And so
it's a house.
Yes, it was a house. It was a house. And so, sometimes I know that when we are renovating historical or buildings that have value and meaning, I understand that we can become contentious and, upset. But, it's our hope that we bring life back to the building. We make great use of the building. And one of the things that I really want to do is have a campus, or have everybody on one campus, which is something that I think is needed right now. So those are my thoughts and comments about the building renovation. Just a quick update from the district. We will be welcoming back our new teachers on next Monday as we push forward to open the building. Veteran teachers will return on August the 2nd, and students return on August the 9th. I'm sure they are very happy about that. So, and then I want to, Mrs. Robinson was at our school board meeting, and I just wanted to give a little bit of guidance that some of our families may have missed, or maybe they didn't. We are required to open for all of our students next year, okay? That is because of Senate Bill 1303. We will have full capacity. We will do our very best to open as normal. Today, the DOE and the Virginia Department of Health released their guidance as pertains to the expectations of schools. And so I'm not able to share all that information with you at this point, but what I do anticipate and what I shared with the board was that we'll still have health mitigation measures, hand washing, social distancing to the greatest extent possible within the district for all of our classrooms. We still are expected to hold our cleaning practices that we had last school year in our high touch areas. We are also expected to continue with our layered prevention throughout the district. And when I say layered prevention, I am discussing, my slide just moved, all of the mitigation measures that we have to take that include masking, potentially, that's a decision that the school board have to make in the coming weeks. Health mitigation, as far as hand washing, cleaning, and one of the other additional mitigation measures that the state does not require, but would love to see schools participate in, is vaccinations and testing. And so for COVID-19. So those are some of the things that we have to explore as a school district. And making sure that we educate our students and families on when they should stay home. You know, as COVID-19 and this new variant begins to take hold, as we open up schools, we still need to educate the families that students must stay home if they are ill, and stay in close contact with us as a school district. So that would conclude my update to town council. Do you guys have any questions of me?
No.
All right, you guys have a great one.
Looking forward to sending my kids back to school.
Yes, ma'am. I look forward to it.
Okay, next up is citizen input. I do limit comments to 3 minutes per person, as you all know, and we are strict to that, to provide enough time for each citizen to speak. And first up is Walter.
Robin,
Yeah.
would you just remind people that this is just general citizen input, that there is a public hearing for the issues, for each of the 3 issues? That'll
Yes,
happen
that's
later.
correct. We have 3 public hearings on the agenda tonight. And so this is just general citizen input. Walter, you're up.
Okay,
Good.
I'm gonna give a history lesson. I live at Colonial Beach. Colonial Beach is the largest town in the northern neck, and that's including the Middle Peninsula. It's larger than Tappahannock population-wise. And Colonial Beach has the second largest beach next to Virginia Beach in the state of Virginia. And we need to capitalize on that. And I want to add one more thing. When you go down past Taylor Cemetery, there's a building. It's a 1-story schoolhouse. It was operated by colored people. Once, back in the 1920s, it was back in the 20s, and that's what my history lesson is about. And so I'm looking forward to my next history lesson at the work session. It's going to be very interesting.
Thank you, Walter. Mr. Long?
Good evening. I just wanted to speak briefly this evening about an issue that's near and dear to my heart, which is handicap access at the beachfront, specifically in just a couple locations. The one is as you go back toward the water across from where the public restrooms are. I think a few years ago there was matting put on the beach. I think that was put there specifically for wheelchair and scooter access. In past couple of years, on the weekends when it gets so crowded, it's used for pretty much everything but that. And the reason is there's been no sign indicating that it's for handicap use. And, if that could be done, I think that would help a lot. Do you know where I'm speaking of? Okay. And the other areas is where the new food trucks have been located. That pea gravel, wheelchairs, and this type of scooter cannot get in and out. I don't know if the town could consider the matting like I'm speaking of. I don't think it's very expensive, and something to provide access to those now that they're there. Because you can imagine my dismay the first trip down where I saw ice cream and wanted it but couldn't get to it. And I think that would be really helpful if there was just matting that could be put to make access to each of those now that they're located there on the beachfront. And that's about it. If there's any help the town could give on that, I would appreciate it. And I think the handicap community would in general. Okay? Thank you.
Good to see you back, Marty. Good to see you back. All right, Mr. Williams?
Good afternoon. David Williams, Irving Avenue. Tonight, for the public comment, I just wanted to speak about public safety. I appreciate the update we got earlier. I do think that the town needs to focus even heavier on the public safety. One of my neighbors said that of all the things in this town, I was asking what he thought was the most important or the most critical, and he said public safety. And so one of the things I found out recently is that we had 3 murders this year already. We just got out of June, and we're already at 3 murders in a tiny little town like this. It seems extreme, but I would just like that, to feel safe in this town. And I've talked to other people that don't feel safe, and they say that there's a lack of police presence. So anything that this town can do to improve that would be greatly appreciated. Cars unload in front of my house all the time, and I've seen one person get pulled over in 3 years. So it doesn't happen often. So I'd like to suggest that somebody looks into that. And then also enforcement, just make sure that, people are following the rules. Like one of my neighbors had said at the last council meeting, kids are driving around in golf carts and ATVs, people speeding down the roads. It's a little bit unnerving. So please look into that. Thank you.
Charlie? Yeah. Lisa? Sherry? All right.
Good evening. I just want to comment on Sherry Hutchins, Lossing on Mr. Williams, public safety. And I know the police department is shorthanded, but we as citizens need to figure out what to do, especially 4th of July was out of control here. The beaches were out of control. People are parking and no parking, no trespassing. I had to run people off my private property. They set up umbrellas and chairs to watch the fireworks. So I don't know if citizens could help or what. A big concern of mine is dogs on the beach. And I love dogs, but not in the summer. I took a walk the other day down on the beach. I had my earbuds in, I was walking, A dog tied to a palm tree almost bit me. And that is inappropriate, especially in our rules or our ordinances. It says no dogs allowed on the beach. I don't care how big or small they are. In the summer, they're not allowed. You can go to any beach in the world. They are not allowed on the beach. We have to figure out what to do. I know one beach, they have people that walk. They give them a ticket. They walk them off the beach with their dog. If they're caught again on the beach with their dog, they are given a $100 fine. Maybe we need animal control down here. I don't know. It's really bad when visitors come, but it's extremely upsetting when our own citizens can't even follow the rules. So that's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
I'll close citizen input, and we're gonna go to several public hearings that we have. Alright. First up is the public hearing for ordinance number 715, which amends Article 6 cigarette tax, section 111, the levied amount by increasing the rate to 40 cents for each 20 cigarettes. Normally Ms. Giles would be here to read us into this, but we have Sean in her place today, who is familiar with this particular issue. Okay.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. I think you can hear me now, right? Good evening. So we have before you two ordinances that are related. The first one, as you mentioned, would be an ordinance to raise the cigarette tax from 30 cents to 40 cents. It also fundamentally reworks the statute so that it would be, it would conform with all of the neighboring counties and towns that will be joining the regional tax board. And then the second ordinance would be to actually join, the second resolution ordinance would be to actually join the Chesapeake Bay Regional, let me make sure I'm saying that correctly. The CBRCT. While there are a lot of changes in terms of the language being used to the cigarette tax ordinance itself, there are no substantive changes in terms of how that tax would be operationalized. And I would be happy to answer any additional questions that you all may have.
We will open it for public input first, and then we'll go into council discussion. Okay. All right. On public input, I'll open the public hearing at 6:41 p.m. And I have Mr. Williams signed up.
Good afternoon again. David Williams, Irving Avenue. And I just wanted to say that I don't agree with the raising of the cigarette tax, primarily because I'm not a fan of raising taxes at all, unless the town can prove to me that they actually will spend the money responsibly. And so if the town can prove that, then that would be great. But at this point, I think that the spending is a problem. You know, we're building linear parks for 30 grand that, you know, people may not even want. So I think that you should reconsider raising this or any tax until you can become more responsible with funding. Thank you.
Mr. Matt? Tree Matt?
Good evening, Tree Matt, 1541 Irving Avenue. My input is I am in favor of raising this tax. If we are the only community within the county and the surrounding counties and towns that are underbid on this subject, I don't see why there's any reason we shouldn't come up to the same price everyone else is. As has been expressed in the past, Virginia is the lowest cigarette or tobacco tax probably in the country. So coming up a little bit on a carton of cigarettes, I don't think is a terrible thing. I think we constantly hear input about needing revenue in the town, and this is certainly a way to improve revenue into the town, and I'm all for it. Thank you.
I don't have anybody else signed up for public input. Is there any other public input?
Madam Mayor?
Yeah.
We have Mr. Jerry Davis here from the Planning District, who I've invited to give just a brief update of the Cigarette Tax Board, the other localities that have joined, and be prepared to answer any questions that you may have. So we'll bring him to the podium at this point.
Okay. Welcome, Mr. Davis. Good to see you.
Good evening, how are you? So let me just say, you may be aware that last year, the Virginia General Assembly passed legislation that authorized counties in Virginia to implement a cigarettes tax. Prior to that, only city and towns had that authority to do that, and y'all have had a cigarette tax for some years, as has 3 other of the Northern Neck towns, Warsaw, Kilmarnock, and Whitestone. So once this legislation was adopted, the General Assembly, the Department of Taxation, formed a working group to look at the issue and how this tax was going to get implemented across the state, because there's a lot of counties that potentially could be doing this. And it was the potential for the Department of Taxation and retailers, wholesale distributors, all could be overwhelmed with this, trying to implement this tax in so many different localities. So the long and short of it is that the working committee that had a wide range of stakeholders on it, to include wholesale distributors, the Department of Taxation, and others, government representatives, made the recommendation that if counties were going to be looking to do a cigarette tax, the recommendation is that the counties ought to look at the model in Northern Virginia, where the Northern Virginia locality some years ago formed a regional cigarette tax board. And the tax is administered on behalf of those localities on a regional basis. So it was strongly recommended that localities look at following that same model to do this. So our counties in the Northern Neck first considered whether they wanted to institute a cigarette tax, and 2, if they did, was it feasible to form a regional entity to do this on their behalf? And they did this because some years ago, when the counties received authority to bill for emergency ambulance services, they first started doing that through private billing companies, and it didn't work out very well. So we formed a regional billing operation under the planning district, where the planning district is the administrative fiscal agent, does that billing on their behalf, and it's worked out very well. We've achieved higher collection rates. The service is done here locally at a lower administrative fee. We do it for 5%, whereas the private billing companies were up in the 7 to 10% range for administration of that. So anyway, they looked at that and said, that other operations worked out so well for us, we'd certainly like to do this on a regional basis if it's feasible. So for some months now, we've been in this discussion about how to go about doing this. And they came to the planning district and said, we'd like to do it under the planning district as the administrative fiscal agent. And so with that, I started took the Northern Virginia agreement that was already in place, some of the procedures that they've already worked out, the forms that they use, on and on and on, and started having discussions with the other players, the Department of Taxation, reaching out to the wholesale distributors and others to see how this could happen, what was involved in implementing it. So here we are today. We came to the conclusion that following the same model in Northern Virginia was the way to go. And the way they do it in Northern Virginia, instead of localities or the regional group having their own stamp that a wholesale distributor would have to purchase either from the regional entity or from localities, that they would have to apply to the cigarettes. Northern Virginia worked out a memorandum of understanding with the Department of Taxation whereby wholesale distributors, when they purchase the state stamp and pay the state tax, they purchase a joint stamp that has the regional entity on it as well. So what happens is a wholesale distributor goes to the regional board in Northern Virginia, buys their state stamp. It has the regional stamp with it, and they pay the state their revenue. The state tax currently is 60 cents a pack. And then they generate to the wholesale distributors the information they need to report to the regional entity how many cigarettes, how many stamps they purchased, and where those cigarettes are going by locality and by location, where they report that to the regional entity and pay the local revenues through the regional entity, who in turn distribute it out to the localities. So it's a very efficient way of doing it because it has that joint stamp. So we're following that same model. So we have worked out an MOU with the Department of Taxation. I was on a call earlier today with the department where we went through the final agreement, and it's in final form, and went through the checklist of items that need to happen in order to institute this tax through a regional board. And we're in good shape. We've accomplished all the steps. The Department of Taxation is ready to execute the MOU with us. The regional stamp has actually already been ordered from MyraCorp and has been delivered to the Department of Taxation. They received those last Friday. So they have the stamps ready. They're ready to start selling them to the wholesale distributors. What we'll do next is we're going to send a notice out to all the wholesale distributors. I've had conversations with a number of them already. I'll send a notice through the wholesale distributor organization that most of the wholesale distributors belong to. I'll send it to them, where they'll get it out to all their members. I'll send it individually to those wholesale distributors that I know are doing business within our service territory, so that everybody knows what the procedure is going to be, how they go about ordering their stamps from the Department of Taxation, how we're going to go about permitting them at the regional level. They'll be posting a bond with us since they are considered a stamping agent, and be collecting distributing the revenues and so forth. So everything's in place. We're ready to go. And it's a very efficient way of doing it, rather than an individual county or locality that has to buy their own stamp from MyraCorp or any other company that sells stamps, handle those stamps, sell those stamps to all the wholesale distributors that are doing business, and then that stamp has to get applied to cigarettes before they're sold to the retailer. So anyway, that's how we're going to do it. We're all ready to go. We're going to execute the MOU with the Department of Taxation probably no later than Monday, and I'll be communicating with all the wholesale distributors and the wholesale distributor organization by this Friday, so they know what the deal is, what the procedures are going to be, and they'll all know how this tax is being implemented in the region. So again, I think we're in good shape. So far, the localities in the region that have indicated, some have already taken their final, well, all have taken final action with the exception of Essex County and of course you all. Everybody else has acted to join the regional board and have adopted their tax ordinances. So we have 8 localities so far There's a number of localities that are still out there that are sort of following this and have indicated they may join on later. They're just not ready to implement the tax right now, since this has happened fairly quickly. So I think we may end up with at least the 8, if you all end up joining, and possibly more over time. So we've got enough localities that are going to be participating that makes it cost effective to do this on a regional basis. So we have Westmoreland County, you all who are considering it, the town of Montrose, who previously was not doing a cigarette tax, so this is new for them. The town of Warsaw, who currently has a tax, but they've used this opportunity to raise their tax up to 40 cents. And they're going to join the regional board for implementation. They like the way we're going to do it, and thought that it would be a more efficient way. And they think in the long run, because we're going to be placing a lot of emphasis on enforcement and compliance, they think when it's all said and done, they may actually increase their revenues, even though there's the admin fiscal fee. We have Lancaster County, Middlesex County, the town of Urbana, and then Essex County. And again, I'm talking to a number of other localities, both within the Northern Neck and Middle Peninsula, that may join on over time. So that's where we're at. I saw the email y'all received from the Wholesale Distributor Organization, and I've had conversations with him. Obviously, he's looking out for his members, and he's been on us to get the word out as early as possible. I understand that, but there was a lot of things that had to fall in place with the MOU, with the Department of Taxation and everything. So we weren't able to get the notice out as early as he would have liked us to get the notice out. But I think there's plenty of time that the wholesale distributors will have to get everything in place and get their stamps ordered and ready to go August 1st. The other thing we're going to do, recognizing that this is a transition period, and this was something the Wholesale Distributor Organization asked us if we would consider, and we have no problem with it, is there's going to be a 45-day grace period from August 1st to mid-September, where retail establishments that have cigarettes in their inventory already that don't have a local stamp, or they may have just a Colonial Beach stamp on them. They'll have 45 days to sell out that inventory before they have to have the regional stamp on their cigarettes. So that should give them, and the wholesale organization thought that was plenty of time for a retailer to sell out that inventory. But at the end of that 45 days, our expectation is that every retailer needs to have the regional stamp on their cigarettes when they're selling them. And again, we're going to be doing compliance checks at all the retailers to make sure everybody is complying. So with that, I'm glad to answer any questions.
Okay, let's take council action and we'll have discussion. Do I have a motion to approve ordinance?
Excuse me, point of order. Do we need to close the public hearing so that we can discuss and ask questions of Mr. Davis?
Sure. The public hearing should have closed before we called up Mr. Davis, because we can call this council people, but we should have closed the public hearing first. I'll close it officially at 6:58 p.m. just because it is that time.
It was 6:43.
It was 6:43 when the last one was. Okay, so 6:43. Okay, so let's go take a motion so that we can open this up for discussion. Is there a motion on the table to raise the?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, so now it's open for discussion. Is there any discussion or questions for Mr. Davis?
I have one question.
Sure.
Thank you very much for bringing up the letter that we received from the Wholesale Distributors Association. They asked about, it looks like at the wholesale level, about discounts or processing for returning current stamps. I mean, I understand what you said about at the retail level. Is there anything in process at the wholesale level for any stamps that have been purchased or any credit for them?
What we're going to be doing, and I'll remind you all as you're taking action, the regional agreement that sets up the regional board, and the regional board itself, it says that every locality has one representative on the board. So, and of course, nobody has made the appointments to the board yet. That's something that has to happen here in short order. Once we have the board, we'll call a meeting of the board, and those are some of the issues that the board will take up on what kind of procedures that they want to put in place and dealing with those kind of issues. And then we'll be getting into the, at the appropriate time, talking about what their expectation from the board, as we're moving into compliance and enforcement and all that. But that'll all be board decisions. So these are like policy issues that, as the administrative fiscal agent, I'm really not, it's not my decision. We're going to be working for this appointed board. So hope that answers the question.
And the other thing they mentioned is for regional tax boards, which I'm not sure who we is referring to in this case, but do not purchase tax stamps up front because we do not know where the product is going or the tax rate. The board should provide generic stamps of their own that would be a part of the state agreement to cover the state tax as well. Is that something that's being done, or is it something?
No, I think that's, I think Jeff's just, it's not understanding that we're entering into MOU with the Department of Taxation and that the wholesale distributors will be buying that joint stamp from the Department of Taxation. So they're not going to be coming to us to buy a separate regional stamp. So that all those issues go away. So the wholesale distributor, and I got from the Department of Taxation, all the wholesale distributors that currently are permitted and purchase stamps from the Department of Taxation. I can tell you that every wholesale distributor that distributes in the Northern Neck and Middle Peninsula and the localities involved in this are on that list. So that shouldn't be an issue. Everybody is, and a lot of those sell up in Northern Virginia, so they're familiar with the procedures up there when they buy the joint stamp. So I think this transition is going to be easy. We just need to formally get the word out so that everybody knows, one, what the effective date is. They already know it's coming at August 1st. Just know what, know that we're going to be following the same procedure. We'll be giving them their forms. There's a reporting form once they buy that joint stamp from the state. And of course, they'll be applying that to the cigarettes like they always do. And then they sell those out. Well, they'll be reporting to us at the regional level who they sold to and how much. And there's a reporting form. We're going to use the same reporting form that they use up in Northern Virginia. So they should be very familiar with it. And they just report to us by locality and volume where those stamps were sold to. And then they pay us the tax when they report it. So at the end of a month, let's say at the end of August, by the 15th of the following month, they'll be required to file that report to us and to pay that tax. It's the same way they put up in Northern Virginia. So it's a pretty clean process, very efficient, really very simple process. So I know it gets complicated. To be honest about it, it gets complicated when these companies, their wholesale distributors, have to buy the state stamp, get it, apply it to cigarettes, And then they have to go out to these individual localities and buy a local stamp and then apply that to the cigarette. So that, that gets very labor intensive. And there's a lot of security issues with handling stamps and making sure the stamps are secure and of course they're handling the revenue, which they're going to be doing anyway, but did I answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
I have another question for Adam, unless somebody else has something. Adam, do you see any concerns? I know you're managing our tax stamp now, and do you have any concerns about, I know that joining the board is a separate ordinance, but we passed one, we're leading into the other, so I'm asking it up front.
No, ma'am, I don't see any concern. I think it's a really good idea to join the board. I don't think we should, I think it gives us a great opportunity to increase our stamp and to give people less option to go somewhere else.
Thank you.
If we're all kind of on the same plate, I think it'll be a really good thing.
I can't remember what I said, but all the localities are going to the 40 cent. Everybody's going to 40 cent.
Including King George, even though they're not doing the tax.
Correct.
Yeah, indoors, yeah.
Okay, are we ready to vote? Yes? Okay.
Is there any other discussion points on this, right? I'd
Do you have?
like to make a point though. We've talked about the revenue that would come in from raising this tax. And this is just sort of not to you, not to join the board, but for specifically on the raising the taxes. And that's what I'm going to address right now. Is it seeing that all those other towns, counties, everything around us is at 40 cents a pack. There's the argument that says, okay, we should be like everybody else. That doesn't hold a lot of water with people, right? But doing the math of what we had in revenue last year at 30 cents a pack, what our revenue would be, assuming the same number of cigarettes are sold. And on my calculations, basically last year we sold 283,333 packs of cigarettes. And that seems like a lot, but really if you look at an average of maybe a pack and a half a day from somebody, that's really down to like 500 to 600 people that would consume that at that rate. So given that we'd sell the same number of cigarettes at 40 cents a pack, the revenue we make minus the fee to go to the cigarette board here is roughly $21,000. And having sat through the budget briefings, as we all did with the CFO, there are a lot of agencies and departments that have $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 items on there. I'm looking at Bruce, and what were body cams? 11,000, roughly. Yeah,
low version, yes.
Yeah, so there are things that are out there aren't on the wish list, don't make it to the capital improvement fund list, but are viable options for this type of revenue. It doesn't sound like a lot, and yes, it's not going to lower property taxes, but it's going to get some of the things that we need and our staff needs to do their job. So that's the reason why I'm kind of in favor of the 40 cents a pack minus, instead of 30 cents. As we look at this ordinance here to raise the price. We want to put in perspective of what it gets us in our town and what the staff needs for our budget. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other points?
Could I just say, I know it was said earlier, but this has come out in the discussion as the counties have been discussing it around the region. But, and it was mentioned earlier, Virginia has either the lowest or one of the lowest taxes in the country. And they just raised theirs up to 60 cent pack. And even at that, it's still one of the lowest, if not the lowest in the country. So when you add the 40 cent on top of that at $1 a pack, compared to across the country, it's still the lowest. Which is why so many people drive down from Maryland, New York, New Jersey, because their tax rates up there are way, way, way higher. And people come down 301 and come down into the northern neck to buy their cigarettes. because it's such a large difference in the tax rates. So just so you know that.
Oh, let's call a vote. Mr. Duggan? Mr. Moncur?
Aye.
Ms. Robertson?
Aye.
Dr. Sullivan?
Aye.
Mr. Allison?
Aye.
Mr. Cambridge?
Aye.
And Chair votes aye. All right, next is the public hearing for ordinance 716, establishment and approve the agreement to join the board. I will open it for public hearing, public input at 7:09 PM. I don't have anybody signed up for this one. Seeing nobody, I will close public input at 7:10 PM. Can we open it for discussion? Do I have a motion on ordinance 716? Establishment and improvement of agreement of the Chesapeake Bay Region cigarette tax.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, open for discussion. Is there further discussion on this? After listening, Mr. Davis, to the amount of effort and coordination with the Department of Taxation, I think we're getting a heck of a deal at a 5% administrative fee, to be honest with you. So I appreciate the effort and collaboration of bringing the Northern Net communities together on this. And I'm
Well, keep in mind, and this question's already come up, and we do the same thing with the emergency ambulance billing. Once, the board will, over time, as we get a handle on exactly how much tax revenue is flowing, and then the number of localities that we ultimately may end up with, if we're able to reduce that 5%, we will in the board, because we're not in this to make a profit. We're in just to cover the cost of administration, which a lot of, that's, buying, we're sharing, because of this MOU with the Department of Taxation, we're sharing the cost of stamps because with the state. So we're actually going to be getting the stamps lower than if we had our own stamp. So that's a cost savings, but that is a cost of implementing. You're already buying stamps, an individual stamp already. And we're talking to MyraCorp, who sells these stamps to a lot of the they supply stamps, but they do a lot of other things. And we're talking to them about, it's something they're discussing with Northern Virginia about putting together some kind of where this can all be administered electronically. It's not all paper, passing paper and all this kind of stuff that we could. So I'm hopeful that's going to happen, which will just make it more efficient and more streamlined. So, but the point I want to make is, once the board over time gets a handle on what this is actually costing, of course we want to do the compliance. Everybody has felt that's important to have these compliance checks. Once we get a handle on the cost and what's coming in, if they can adjust that rate, they will. I'm confident of that. So.
I thought of one more question. You said every locality will have a representative on the board. That means Colonial Beach will have a representative on the board?
Yes.
Are there any qualifications for that person?
Adam being the representative.
Well, are there any qualifications for that person? Do they have to be a staff person or none?
No, it just says one representative from each locality. So it's whoever the locality wants, whoever you want to represent your interest on the board.
Thank you.
Many of the other localities have come to Adam for this though, because Colonial Beach is one of the few entities that has done it. So I think we're very fortunate to have his.
I actually helped King George set theirs up.
Yes, and I would add that it will more than likely probably be the town manager or designee, and he would definitely be my designee if I would not attend.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Okay. All right, we will take a roll call vote then. Dr. Sullivan?
Aye.
Mr. Adams?
Aye.
Mr. Cambridge?
Aye.
Ms. Robertson? Aye. Mr. Moncur?
Aye.
Mr. Duggan?
Aye.
And Chair votes aye. All right, moving forward. Thank you, Mr. Davis, for making the trip. Okay, public hearing, ordinance number 717, amendment to chapter 23, economic incentives, technology, and tourism zones, and the repeal of chapter 24, which was repealed in the Virginia State Code. Ms. Easley, would you like to read this out?
This is ordinance to amend chapter 23, technology zones, and repeal chapter 24. This is to give incentives for technology zones, tourism zones, and economic revitalization zones. Verbiage is before you, and we have a map to show the areas, which I believe were revised per EDC recommendations. And do you have any questions for me?
Okay, we will open the public hearing at 7:14 p.m. And first up, we have Joe Kelly.
No. Okay, so Joe Kelly is out of town, so he submitted his by email. It says, "Dear Mayor Schick and council members, as a member of the Economic Development Committee of the Colonial Beach Chamber of Commerce, I am writing to encourage your adoption of the proposed updates and revisions to Ordinance 717 pertaining to the economic incentives for technology and tourism zones. I have read the written comments submitted by our chairman, Mr. Fitzpatrick, and I agree 100% with Mike's comments. Further, I have read a very concise summary of the updates to Chapter 23 of the Town Code prepared and posted on Facebook by our mayor. I support what Mayor Schick has written. I encourage everyone to read the mayor's summary. The chamber and the town agree that the future of business in Colonial Beach requires a collective investment by everyone, especially the town. The changes reflected in Ordinance 717 are a step in the right direction to help ensure the economic vitality of our town. Zoning regulations are not changing. We are simply providing a tax incentive to existing and new businesses for investing in Colonial Beach and providing quality full-time employment within the town limits. Please vote yes so we can begin promoting these incentives to prospective and existing businesses." And then we have Mr. Fitzpatrick. Let me just keep going.
Sure, yep, next. We have a lot of people signed up, so.
Dear, this one is for Mr. Fitzpatrick. He is also out of town and commented via email. "Dear Mayor Schick and council members, as a board member of the Chamber of Commerce and chairman of the Economic Development Committee, I am writing to encourage your full support for the proposed updates and revisions to Ordinance 717 pertaining to economic incentives for technology and tourism zones. I've had the pleasure of working with the EDC, the mayor, and Councilwoman Sullivan for the past 7 months to revise the very out-of-date ordinances currently in place. A lot of time, thought, and input from business owners and other local jurisdictions has gone into this revision. Our goal has been to encourage and support new business growth in Colonial Beach, as well as encourage expansion and improvements to existing businesses by offering pertinent and attainable economic incentives. With that in mind, we looked at the different zone maps to understand where businesses are currently located and are likely to locate in the future. This ordinance in no way changes the zoning laws that are in place. New businesses must still comply and, as necessary, apply for conditional use permits. The primary purpose of this update is to have the town provide some support to help businesses through their initial years of startup, as well as revitalization and expansion of existing businesses. New categories of business were added to reflect the current market in Colonial Beach and the needs of our citizens and visitors. We want to change the dynamic in town and make Colonial Beach a business-friendly town. This includes medical facilities, marinas, technology, and tourist-related commercial businesses. We want to encourage new businesses to establish themselves in Colonial Beach and to thrive. Our citizens will benefit from this by having more options to meet their needs in town, as well as increasing our tax revenue base. These are all good things and very much aligned with multiple other jurisdictions I met with who have adopted similar changes to their incentive Ordinances. As I have said many times, Colonial Beach is on the brink of a major comeback that will truly make it a great place for our citizens and visitors. Ordinances like this are just one step towards making this happen. It was a past time for this ordinance to be reviewed and updated to reflect the current business's needs and align with our comprehensive plan. Please vote aye so we can begin promoting these incentives to prospective and existing businesses.
Next up, I have, do you want to do Swink? Okay.
To Mayor Robin Schick and all council members. My wife and I have been residents at 101 Monroe Bay Avenue for over 30 years. Due to a previous commitment, we will not be able to attend the council meeting this evening to state the following. We are both not in favor of expanding the tourism zone into our community known as The Point. The town's comprehensive plan specifies that the Point side of the town should remain as a quaint community with the existing commercial zones to operate within the residential community. The possibility of opening the entire perimeter of the Point to addition business ventures would destroy the character and charm that the Point is so well known for. By passing this proposed resolution, it could offer an easy first step to a massive zoning change and a slap in the face to our comprehensive plan and residents of our town. Please vote no.
Anybody else have letter? Mr. Nelson, you signed up?
Madam Mayor, Town Council, I'd like to speak both from the perspective of the Colonial Beach Community Foundation and also from my own perspective, if that's all right. The mission of the Colonial Beach Community Foundation is to enhance the quality of life in and around Colonial Beach. And as such, the foundation supports economic initiatives that improve the quality of life for its residents. And so this kind of initiative, we believe, does support and improve the quality of life for its residents. So I want to go on record as stating that we would support this initiative. Now, if I can switch gears and talk about my personal perspective, I have a educational and business background in economics, and particularly in economic development, and have worked for many, many years in the area of economic development with small businesses in Alexandria and even here. And these are exactly the kind of initiatives that are essential to improve the economic vitality of this town. This is, as has been stated many times, this does not change the zoning rules. Any business who wants to come into town that does not conform with the existing zoning regulations would still need to go through many hoops to get its plan approved. So what this does, though, it does give businesses from outside the area this idea that Colonial Beach is open for business, and that we are interested in seeing a diversity of different businesses in town. So from a personal perspective, I think this is long past due that the town would adopt this. As I think many of you know, for several years I was the head of the Economic Vitality Committee of downtown Colonial Beach, and these were exactly the kind of initiatives that we were trying to pursue then. So I strongly urge you to support this initiative. Thank you.
Mr. Williams?
David Williams, Irving Avenue. I'd like to start by saying I support the incentives for businesses. And when I say businesses, I mean businesses in quotes. According to the last meeting, I wanted to show you two maps. According to the last meeting, the mayor said not much has changed. Well, these little green dots speckled around the point are what was, and all this red all over the place, hope everybody can see this on camera, is the proposal. About 800 to 1,000 houses are going to be put into this tourism zone. And I know you guys have said this over and over again, this will not change any zoning laws. Well, then why are you putting them in there? You were very specific in 2010 when you did this. Very specific, the businesses only. So now we got homes all over the place. So I know how the tourism zone works. I've actually contacted the Virginia Department of Tourism and spoke to the administrator. And he said that this plan that you guys are doing with a map should be included in an economic development plan. Unfortunately, according to the mayor, we do not have one in this town. We have no plan. So I don't know what to say except that this is a bad idea. There is no problem with you guys just looking at a map, taking a few minutes and locating where you think businesses should be here on the point in Colonial Beach, and then making your decision. I'm on the record as being strongly opposed to this proposal of changing the map. Thank you.
Ms. Williams?
Paige Williams, 1535 Irving Avenue. I disagree with the ordinance to expand the tourism zone to the whole perimeter of the point, which are people's houses in residential neighbors zoned R2. The current tourism zone map already includes marinas, which is fine and should be left that way, as it states in the comprehensive plan. This ordinance goes against your own comprehensive plan. I don't understand. Why are Castlewood Park and Eleanor Park in this zone? For what purpose? Why not do something to bring businesses to the empty spaces all over Colonial Beach and downtown? Honestly, you must wonder before you go to bed at night why citizens don't trust town government. Well, when you do stuff like this, that's why. Thank you.
Dr. Montalvo?
Yes. Dr. Montalvo or Mr. Montalvo?
You.
Okay. Okay. Here you go. Oh, thank you. So I'm going to stick to 3 points. I have a whole speech to give, but short time, correct? Mr. Fitzpatrick sent a message. He could not be here and said a lie to the comprehensive plan. That was his intention. The Colonial Beach Comprehensive Plan 2020 to 2040. The Planning Commission had told us we consulted everybody. We are firming what we are proposing. The plan reads, maintain the current commercial maritime designation and restrict other types of businesses for the point. So why to increase the perimeter and why to include the parks? This is against what the Planning Commission recommended and what the residents want. This council should listen to the residents and leave it as it is, as the Planning Commission recommended. Now, the proposal, nothing wrong with the incentive. My God, we need the incentives. But the incentives are not the problem. They are in the books. Look at all the storefronts. We started calling people. Yeah, we call people. And we discovered that only in 2 of these businesses, North Irving and 106 Hartford, have enough vacant space, only those 2, which are small ones, to house a Walmart. We have capacity here to house over 5 Walmarts, and some of them may be supercenters. This is in town on the few businesses that we saw. This is a major issue. This is where our incentives should go. And those incentives have been applied already. Why not relook at them and try to come up with a plan? There's no plan. Without plan, a brochure is not a plan. You can issue any type of brochure you want, but people will not come. You need to have a real plan. According to Mr. Coffey, and the difference between the 70 towns that have incentives that don't work and the 10 that does work, The difference is a plan. We want a plan. We want these incentives to work, and we want that the next time that this is discussed, all those businesses are full. And by golly, listen to the people. The point should not be included. The planning commission said it should not be included. Stick to what your planning commission says.
Santiago?
I struggle with technology. Okay. So we are the jewel of this county. Those were the words from our liaison to this county. This council wants to pass a tourism and technology ordinance with the justification that it will provide incentives to existing and new businesses. What the council fails to mention is that per Virginia code, this could be used as means to rezone an area without a public hearing. I'm sure that many who live at the point, as I do, did not move here to have our neighborhood rezoned just to have shops, restaurants, or other type of businesses built next to our homes. Not houses, homes. The point has a unique character, which I called 2 years ago during a council meeting, the Pearl of the Potomac. Moving ahead with this proposal does nothing but destroy the character of the Point and Colonial Beach. I believe in incentives. They make financial sense to establish businesses which are struggling, and that seems to be several. Driving around Colonial Beach, you can see the amount of closed business shops, and the pandemic showed how much our businesses need not only incentives, but also citizens sponsoring. And I know that was next to impossible, that was next to impossible during the pandemic. But if there's something I know, is that this is a seasonal town with lots of businesses turnover, businesses come and go, with only the well-established businesses remaining, and even some of them struggle. Do we want to bring more just for them to fail? We don't have the demand. We are a small town with not enough people to support more businesses. If we are counting on seasonal support, this will fail. This initiative will not improve quality of life in any way, shape, or form. If anything, it will deteriorate. So my point, before you entertain an idea such as the one proposed, put your efforts on helping the established and new businesses. If we want to keep Colonial Beach as a jewel of this county, as the Pearl of the Potomac as I know it, let's work on keeping it that way, not turning it into a south of the border. If these were your homes, how would you vote? I say vote no. And since I have a few seconds left, I want to give a shout out to the chief and his fine police officers. They have improved so much. Thank you for your guys. Thanks for improving their presence at the point. There's still a lot more to do.
Mr. Montalo, you can Thank you.
There's not a police officer when you need it. It's understandable.
Okay.
You don't have that many.
Ms.
Oh, thank
Bachman?
you.
Good evening, Kathy Bachman, 1501 Augustine Lane on the Point, and a member of the Economic Development Council. So listening to this, back and forth today and reading social media and understanding what went into the EDC and a resident of the Point, I don't think at any point, no pun intended, were we looking to take that residential community called the Point and make it a tourist mecca. I think, as we looked at this and we spent a lot of hours looking at it, the goal was to improve opportunities for tourist businesses as well as in the hospitals and technology. I can see the point of the big map and it being a little frightening and, seeing zoning changes going on. We might want to look at the map and carve out what's currently commercial and not R2. but I think the incentives are right on. I think the incentives, as we work through them as a collaboratively, as a group, really are needed. There is an underlying work towards a plan for economic development as a community. I had an opportunity last week to be at a forum that was hosted and moderated by a University of Virginia professional. So there's a lot of this. We need this. If the objection is, please don't take my residential neighborhood, I think we might want to look at that, because that was never, ever the intent. The intent was to bring more business in, take our current businesses and make them better and have them last longer. So thank you very much.
Susan?
Susan Mack, 1541 Irving Avenue. First, I'd like to thank the Economic Development Committee of the Chamber of Commerce, led by Mike Fitzpatrick, for spearheading the proposal to update Chapter 23 of the Town Code, which relates to economic incentives. The proposal is well thought out, has bipartisan support, and presents a business-friendly approach to incentivizing existing businesses and attracting new businesses to Colonial Beach. Despite intimations to the contrary, the plan does not seek to displace residents with new businesses. It does not change the zoning ordinance, but rather establishes tourism and technology zones that are used to offer tax incentives for existing business growth and/or new business development. It does not incentivize vacation rentals, as has been floated around. I live on Irving Avenue, an area in the Point that will be in the tourism zone. I do not fear that a Wawa, a Walmart, or a Wegmans will become my neighbor. I do not fear that there is a plot to get rid of me by recruiting businesses to take over the Point. I know that if my neighbor sells their property and an eco tour guide company or a boat repair company wants to purchase that property and open a business, they will have to obtain a special use permit because the zoning ordinance has not changed. This is not an easy process. A public hearing would be held, and me and all my neighbors can voice our thoughts and our opinions before a decision is made. I know that vacation rentals and Airbnbs do not profit or benefit from the proposed economic incentives. I have 2 vacation rentals. I pay federal, state, county, and town taxes for these properties and have thankfully been successful in the high season, the shoulder season, and the off season, which keeps tax revenue flowing to local and other government agencies. As an active, interested, and dedicated Colonial Beach volunteer and advocate, I trust that the authors of the economic incentives had the best interest of Colonial Beach and her residents in mind when they crafted the document, and I believe that the Town Council will make a decision using the same guiding principles. Thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts, and thank you for all you do for Colonial Beach.
Good evening again, Trey Mack, 1541 Irving Avenue. And obviously, also, I am a resident of the Point, and I've heard it expressed recently that the Point is the heart of Colonial Beach, and I'd kind of like to dispute that a little bit. We are certainly a wonderful part of Colonial Beach, but we are not all of it. And having some incentives for businesses in the area, I think is a great idea. The opportunity for the marinas to improve, hire more employees, spend a little more on their infrastructure, I think is a great thing, and some of them could use a little bit of that. Ours is not the only tourist incentive area. It's also included over by Wilkerson's and combined in the center of town, the technology and tourist area. And I believe some of the areas, some of the empty storefronts that were pointed out fall into that area. And something was mentioned about enough room for a Walmart. Please God, no. If anything that we incentivize into this town, please not that. If we want to go to a Walmart, I'm perfectly happy to drive 20 minutes to get to one. I enjoy the small town feel that we have, and I think being able to encourage companies and businesses, preferably small businesses, to reside here, make their home here, and bring in their revenues is a wonderful idea. I also do not fear being displaced by them. So please vote yes. Thank you.
All right, that was everybody I had signed up. Is there anybody else? Ms. Reimer? Come on.
I had called in to have our.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Did you already send in a statement, or are you coming to speak right now?
I'm coming to bring a statement.
Okay, yep, go ahead.
Downtown Colonial Beach, the town's Main Street affiliate, supports the incentives under discussion tonight. We also hope these incentives will be applied productively for existing as well as new businesses, and that the qualifications as a tourism or technology business will be flexible enough to benefit current retail shops and others we are seeking to attract. We also support the areas where these incentives will apply, not just the downtown, but also the Marina District, for one. The Marina District would often say to me when I talk with them, well, what do we have to do with downtown? And vice versa. And I would say, you bring in visitors and we give those visitors something to do in the downtown. So I think there's a very positive relationship there. This will also recognize the significant economic asset marinas have been for this community and improve their prosperity, while possibly stimulating some new amenities along the Monroe Bay Rim for the pleasure of nearby residents and the community as a whole. Application of these incentives along Route 205 could also be beneficial, potentially laying the groundwork for healthcare operations to meet community needs or other businesses that will expand quality employment with benefits and higher wages. We would just ask, in this case, the town be mindful of aesthetic considerations with such developments so that it blends rather than clashes with the current character of the community. The issue of displacement has been raised about these incentives by some concerned citizens. Downtown Colonial Beach welcomes this happening in relation to all town development. As DCB has stated repeatedly, revitalization of the downtown was started to benefit the residents of this town, not displace them. Rampant gentrification and displacement are not the inevitable outcome of community improvement if factors moving the town in that direction are monitored and strategic actions taken to alleviate or forestall them. Such actions could include monitoring the rises in taxes and fees on homeowners, assuring that moderate income housing for families with children is built, as well as that for the affluent, and that we also increase the availability of rental units. Businesses need customers to survive even more than incentives. One or more rental units in our commercial core could replace blight, increase year-round foot traffic for our shops, and provide convenient housing for our critically needed tourism employees whose availability and quality can make or break our reputation as a destination. Downtown Colonial Beach does not see these incentives as contributing to such displacement, but rather doing the opposite, leading to more jobs and livelihoods for our residents so they can afford to continue living here. But we welcome the concern of more residents about the potential for displacement, so this issue can be addressed before it is too late. Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes? Will you just state your name and address since I don't have you listed?
Betsy Mathis, I have a house on Monroe Bay and a house on Irvin, which are family homes. I got a call like at 6:15 saying I have to get to this meeting. They're trying to change the point. I do object to it. I think the point should be left alone. There's already a parking issue. There's already a traffic issue Friday through Sunday. Putting a business 2 houses down from my house would be a disaster for parking. Have you ever been to a yard sale on Monroe Bay or Urban Avenue on the weekend? It's crazy, you can't park. Putting a business anywhere on Monroe Bay or Irving where they shouldn't belong is just gonna cause a lot of problems. So I just wanna say, I object.
Okay, is there any other public input at this point? See, none? Nope, you spoke already.
I
I'm
just have to
sorry.
say something.
No, I'm sorry, we're gonna close public input at 7:44 PM. And we're gonna move to council discussion. All right, do I have a motion to open this up? Ordinance 717, amendment of chapter 23, economic incentives, technology enforcement, repeal of chapter 24.
So moved.
I have a second?
Second.
Okay, now it's open for discussion. Before I open up to the other council members, I'd like to address some of these things. First off, I in absolutely no way appreciate the campaign of misinformation that has happened on Facebook. That is an inappropriate way to handle this. You have questions, you came to me, I have answered them. I have answered them again and again and again with the same response that is true and factual. This is not a rezoning of the zoning ordinance. It is not. It is an economic incentive overlaid, okay? And it is one of the small steps, and a very small step, towards being business friendly in this town. The primary focus of it is indeed the purple region, in which both zones apply, which is every business that is on that poster board that is over there. That is the primary focus. And that is the primary focus in the map, and that is why both zones apply to that area. That is very important and is the central part of this. Now, as far as the map extending in tourism to the perimeter of the point, that was discussed and brought by the EDC to us for the entire point to have that. I will tell you, the map from 2010 is outdated. There are multiple businesses that are zoned in that map that are not existing anymore. There are multiple other locations in which businesses now exist that are not on that map. We have to be more open-minded about the fact that these things change over time. Why put a map that properties are going to fluctuate? The zoning ordinance regulates what and where those things can go. The incentives is just to entice people to indeed bring what that zone is required. So it was important not to what they call spot zone. Okay, spot zoning is when individual parcels, pieces of here and there and that little guy and this little guy happen. Well, obviously changes happen over time in a community, and so it have a contiguous zone in which we know the perimeter of the point, which is located along the waterfront, which is where Maritime and B&Bs would come up, and those are the two businesses that are mainly focused on that area. And those are two businesses in which are struggling and need incentives. I mean, you want to bring up vacant storefronts, I can bring up vacant slips. And they all need to be filled, and they're an important part of our economy. They're a vital part of our economy. We cannot forget who we are. And the point in which I live in and grew up in is in the zone. My house is in that zone, okay? And I have had a business in it, legally permitted with a conditional use permit, the whole 9 yards. I have had a business in it. I do not have a business in it now. I have moved to downtown, and I'm very proud of that fact. And I'm excited to be a part of the revitalization that is happening in the downtown part of our community. But the truth is that small startups happen in homes. And that is an important part of the economy, because in Colonial Beach, it's small business that matters. And so we need to be working with and incentivizing in the tiniest little ways sometimes, not to big corporations. I also do not want a Walmart. Please, God, okay? I'm fine with going to Dahlgren. I know there are going to be some citizens that disagree with that and they would like to see a Walmart. I do not want one, okay? That's my opinion. That's why there's 7 people up here. It's not all just one person. But there has been a campaign of disinformation that this is going to commercialize in some major drastic way the point. And that couldn't be further from the truth. And to be honest with you, I'm a little bit flattered that you think this is going to make a difference because it's a really tiny step. And I wish that it did make some difference. But the truth is, it's just a way to present that we are business friendly, that we want to work with you, and that we're willing to, to waive the B poll tax, which is not even a high tax. I mean, it's not even a lot of money. So as a business owner, as a Point resident, and as somebody who is working with this EDC, the Chamber of Commerce, multiple partners in this was a very, very collaborative process. And it was not in any way has any intention of commercializing the historic character of the Point. Many businesses will take that historical character, like a B&B, like my home, that was a B&B, and continue that historical aspect of it. It's the only way to keep some of those historical pieces, like the plaza, like the Bell House. I mean, I can say the house on the corner of Jefferson, the house on the corner of Madison. I can think of at least 8 or 9 different homes that are along that property that could become B&Bs that are gorgeous, and it would give them a new life. And that would preserve that Victorian architecture. So, and we need to focus on tiny, small business, and this is a way to do that, and which isn't these giant things like the enterprise zone and these state things. This is the small local way to do that and to engage with local business owners. And ultimately, to incentivize job creation. And that is a part of the economy that's really necessary here in Colonial Beach. Because I grew up with tons of, I can't say tons of kids because it's not a big school, but almost all of the kids in my class have to leave to go get jobs. Very few of them work in town limits, very few. And I feel fortunate that I can and do. So job creation is a major part of this as we also bolster that part of our economy. Okay, that's my rant, but I felt like I needed to. It's open for discussion. Anybody else?
I'd just like to say one thing in terms of the comprehensive plan, and I know what page, I think it's page 44 that is being looked at, if I remember correctly, off the top of my head, I don't have it in front of me, but 44 talks about uses of the Point. And specifically it says, we want to preserve the character of what's there and discourage other businesses. Well, the comprehensive plan is not in contrast to this ordinance or the zoning that's R2. R2 says you can't have bed and breakfast. It says you can't have a home business, which is exactly what Mayor Schick had. So the only uses for R2 are in line with the comprehensive plan. So I just want to make sure that there's not a disparity between the comprehensive plan and this ordinance. They basically match up well with what the wording of R2, that zoning ordinance R2 brings it all together. So I don't see a conflict there.
No, and I think it preserves the vitality of those places, of the historical character, because many of those places are gone now. Parker's restaurant, which if you're from here, you know what Parker's was, and because they, changeover happened, other people tried to make that business work. Ultimately, it sold. It's a gravel parking lot now. I mean, we need to be working with people in that area. And to be honest with you, one of the things that was not identified on the old map that will be identified in this map is the Wakefield Motel. And that is an existing business that would have been skipped out by that old, outdated, antiquated map. So, and they could use some help. And to be honest with you, I'd like to see it renovated and growing there too. So I just think if we spot zone, you miss opportunity to revitalize in that area too. Yes, Dr. Seltzer.
I've been hearing and listening to a lot of the concerns from citizens on the point. I think there is a disconnect between intention and what the ordinance says and allows, and what the perspective is of some of our residents. And I don't know how to resolve that. I'm looking at this map in detail, and, you know, I don't see where moving the line and keeping it contiguous would make any sense, because then you're ruling out, if you move the line to say where Monroe Bay was, to Monroe Bay Avenue.
I'm talking
then-
about the way it is right now.
Yeah. So if you were to change this map and what's included in it, in this zone, what areas are included, say you moved it to Monroe Bay Avenue, well, then you would incentivize things on the water side, but not, for example, where Parker's was. If you moved it to only include half of the block that faces Irving Avenue and didn't include the other half that faces Lossing Avenue, then you would lose the plaza, right? And so I understand that having a contiguous incentive zone is better than having a spot zone. And I'm looking very hard to see how, if there was any way we could change it and keep it contiguous, and I don't. So I'm in favor of it as it exists, but I think we do need to make sure, and I know you have, and I have responded to try to help our citizens understand the difference between an incentive zone and rezoning. And that's the main thing I want. I want people to understand that that we're not planning to rezone this area. There is no plan to do that. So that's all, but I do understand the disconnect.
I just like to thank all the people who put in hours and days and all their time and commitment to presenting this, trying to do something for Colonial Beach.
Anybody else? Okay. Ready to vote? Okay. Mr. Cabry?
Aye.
Mr. Allison?
Aye.
Dr. Sullivan?
Aye.
Ms. Robertson? Aye. Mr. Montier?
Aye.
And Mr. Dunn?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. All right, new business. Resolution 2721, approval of the standard terms and conditions. And again, we have Sean here instead of Vivian, so.
Madam Mayor, these general terms and conditions are terms and conditions that we recommend be adopted by council so they could be put up on the website, and they will be adopted into every contract that the town signs. These include provisions that are required by the Virginia Procurement Act, such as anti-discrimination provisions, and how you pay subcontractors, as well as just general terms that are good for the city, or good for the town, to include, such as indemnification and other things like that. So we think that this would streamline the contracting process going forward should you adopt these, because we can simply incorporate them by reference instead of attaching them to every contract.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Well,
Yeah.
go ahead and make that.
Let's do the motion in a second, and then we'll open it for motion. Second?
Second.
Okay. Tom, do you have any discussion on it?
A couple of grammatical and technical corrections need to be made. In paragraphs W and Y, we've got a couple of sentences beginning with the in a lowercase. It's my grammatical editing. And in paragraph CC, you make reference to the Board of Supervisors of the town of Colonial Beach. Last time I checked, we had a town council. So that language will need to be conformed.
Is that it?
Yeah, with those suggested edits. Yeah.
Okay. Do I have any other edits? No. Do I have a motion to amend as stated the standard terms and conditions?
With Tom's.
That was with Tom's.
So
I second. Okay. All right. Is there any further discussion? No? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. All right. Did you write down the changes?
We'll make those changes.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, contract for the Robin Grove Shoreline Project. Mr. Murphy, would you like to read us into that?
Yes, we can call the order the proceed to the contract, which this is referring to. We selected the group. It is identified as RES.
Could you speak up about that?
Could you turn your
Oh,
mic on?
sorry. RES is the selected contractor. And they,
Still need to hear it. We still
You
can't
can
hear
pull it
you.
close to your eye.
RES is the selected contractor. It's a HGA, I believe, is the finalized, is the subsidiary, a wholly owned subsidiary is who the contract will be made with. We anticipate proceeding as soon as all the bond instruments are received, signing the contract.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All right, is there any discussion on this? I know there were several council members involved in making sure the evaluation process was good and how many bidders we had and all of that. This bid selection, this is just a contract that we've chosen.
And based on this contract, Rob, just for the citizens to understand, when would it start and when is it proposed to be finished?
The timeframe for performance is completion by November. And that's the requirements of our grant that we received for the project. Their period of performance we anticipated, if we had gotten into the contract, it would have been July 15th if we'd been able to proceed a little quicker. We anticipated it'd be 2 weeks delay from now. Once we get all of the contract documents together, have a approximately 2-month performance period before we have plantings that have to be done within a certain time frame. And that's in between August and end of November, so the project really needs to be completed by that time.
Any other
And their
discussion?
schedule was, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Their schedule was well within that time frame and their predicted schedule
And within budget, correct?
and within budget.
Any other discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Resolution 2821, authorization to enter into a contract agreement with a marketing consultant. This is the process for what the services like Black Shack does now with that marketing contract. India, you want to read us into that?
Sure. As it mentions in the council paper, we advertised for the RFP back in June, as well as in the Freelance Star on EVA and on our town website. The RFP closed formally on June 30th. We received 17 proposals. We ranked. We had a first round review and narrowed that down to 5 proposals and brought those back for interviews, and we will be moving forward, if council blesses tonight, with the highest rank bidder, and moving forward with contract negotiations to proceed with marketing services.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, so are we looking to, would this replace the Flag Shack contract? Or-
This is Black Shack's contract. It went to bid
And so the recommendation is
to move with the highest bidder, the highest rated bidder.
the highest rated bidder. So if that happened not to be Flag Shack, then we wouldn't be using them anymore. Is that right? And that final, this enables the town manager to make that final decision? Is that correct?
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, and now are you ready, John? Oh, no, they gave me a paper for it and I put it, here it is. All right, I'm gonna do a motion to go into closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711A1 for discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salary, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of any public body as related to you have to give me the subject.
Oh, as related to complaint and investigation of alleged employee misconduct.
Great, thank you. What a wonderful topic for closed session. All right, do I have a motion?
So moved.
For a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we're gonna take 5 minutes break.